Welcome to the Cyber Defense Weekly webcast for August 18th, 2010. I'm your host, Richard Stiennon, Chief Research Analyst for IT Harvest and author of Surviving Cyberwar. We're experimenting with the format of these webcasts. Appreciate any feedback you can provide at any time. I give my email address at the end. To date, we've been following the format of the Cyber Defense Weekly newsletter that I send out early every week to summarize news relating to the industry, cyber warfare, government affairs, all around this emerging area of cyber defense. And we're going to continue in that format with introductory comments, usually from analysis, things that I've written about in the previous week, and then go into the news of the industry, and if there are any new threats on the horizon, we cover those. On a lighter note, starting out this past week, Maxi Business, at least the PR people behind the Twitter ID, ran a Twit poll, and they asked for people to vote on who is their most Twitterific InfoSec analyst and who should win, but yours truly with 39% of the vote. Followed extremely closely, only a couple votes behind me, was Andrew Hay, who is an author of several books on network management as well as an excellent analyst at the 451 group. A couple weeks ago, I did a series of lectures for Internet Evolution, who's running a 60 days of executive education program. I highly encourage you to head on over to internetevolution.com. They're the same guys who bring you Information Week and dark reading and light reading. And they have been running this with some great speakers. And then the format allows you to also chat with the speakers and with the other participants. And that's been getting a great response. One of the interesting questions that I addressed in one of my lectures was, what are the 6 elements of a resilient security architecture? And this is what I think they are anyways. Number 1, identity and access management. This comes out of and harks back to a poll that we did internally at Gartner years ago when the team was a lot smaller than it is now. But the question was sparked by, I believe it actually was Howard Schmidt, who now is the cybersecurity policy coordinator for the White House, and he had rather interesting comment that most organizations spend more on coffee than they do on security. So internally we said at Gartner, hey, if you had $100 per employee, where would you get the best bang for your buck, the most returned security and improvement in security for $100? And some of us were amused that the less experienced security people in that group said, oh, it should be spent on security awareness training. Well, of course, security awareness training doesn't do much to enhance your security, and also it costs a lot more than $100 per employee to send people to these types of training classes that sometimes can last up to a week out of every year, and you have to do it continuously. Well, we decided the $100 per person should be spent on is identity and access management, and not only does that include all the directory services around that, but most importantly, having stronger authentication. So don't educate people that they should change their passwords frequently. Give them some sort of token, some sort of way to do strong authentication, and you'll get a vast enhancement in your security protection profile, and that's exactly why I include it in a resilient security architecture, because it layers on top of all the other ones. The next layer is network protection, and in this I include actually a theory that I propound that I call it secure network fabric, but it's basically doing complete content inspection at every network access point, so not just the perimeter between the organization and the internet, but even internally where people are connecting their laptops when they come into the office or mobile devices, any of that at the Wi-Fi level. You have to inspect everything for potential threats and block them when you see them. That's the complete content inspection part of it. Of course, there is the previous step, and that's to discover your network, a topic that I could spend quite a bit of time on, but it's very important to actually know and be able to define the beginning and end of your network. Application defense gives you that layer of protection around the applications that you host and present, or in the cloud, the applications that you use from Salesforce or wherever. And part of that is code review, which has some relevance to the industry news I'm going to talk about in a second, and web application firewalls. Code review, of course, as you're developing your code, gives the ability to either real-time alert the coders that they forgot to do a length check on an input statement or something. And the web application firewalls give you that extra layer of defense, so even if you've done good code review and you put it out there could still be something wrong with the way you've implemented a particular application, a web application firewall provides that defense. So for data protection, and these are the elements, and I'm not talking here about data leak prevention. I've got more to say on that in other presentations. But here I'm talking about encrypting data at rest, and then the most difficult thing to implement of all is easy and cost-effective key management. And we're entering a new phase of key management, I think, and you'll hear stories from vendors that actually are very well presented that don't even mention PKI and certificate authorities and all the rest. And one I like to highlight is Venify, that gives you a simple and easy management interface to all the certificate authorities that you probably already have in your organization, thanks to years of deploying different systems, especially Microsoft, that might have hidden certificate authorities, and you want to be able to manage those from one place, be able to revoke every user certificates if they leave the organization, or if a laptop's lost, and make that a safe occurrence when that happens. Next step is going to be harder to grasp right now because cloud security is still in its infancy, but it's the whole idea of migrating to services that are provided in your own data center, the cloud services, or to an outside third party. And now you have to take extra special care that the virtual machines that you're deploying are protected, and that if they're on the same physical host with another virtual machine that might belong to a competitor or an attacker, that you've got defenses in place. And there's several companies that are coming up with pretty good strategies on exactly how to do that. And then finally, after you've done all this protective stuff, continuous monitoring, and both at the application layer where you're checking usage of different accounts and different applications, how people are logging into them, how they're what time of day they're logging into them, just looking for unusual behavior that could lead you to discover that somebody's abusing their system access in some way. And network monitoring, but not from an IDS standpoint, which is just going to be spewing false alarms at you, but network traffic monitoring, Layer 7 monitoring, trying to discover when behavior changes on your network. So it gives you the ability to have that last layer of defense around your resilient security architecture. In the news this past week, we saw probably what's considered pretty typical hacktivism when a member of parliament in India, who also happens to be one of the wealthiest people in India, had his website defaced. The message left was, "This is payback from Pak cyber army and return to the defacements of Pakistan sites." And it's, according to Indian media, it said, "You are playing with fire. This is not a game, kids. We are warning you one last time. Don't think that you are secure in this cyberspace. We'll turn your cyberspace into hell." I think India and Pakistan are one of the hot spots identify in surviving cyberwar as places to watch for new developments in hacking activity that, if not state-sponsored, is hacktivists in each state and politically motivated in some way or other, or nationally motivated. And certainly this is a sign of that coming up. There's been kind of a truce over the last couple of years between India and Pakistan, Pakistani hackers, and it seems to be dissolving. One of the reasons that I consider Pakistan and India a hotspot to watch is that they're, of course, both nuclear states, and they're both nuclear states because the other one is, and they have been at war with each other 6 or 7 times, depending on who you count, in recent history. And they have the ability to launch nuclear weapons at each other. Well, cyber attacks and network attacks have the capability of potentially shutting down the command and control systems for military use. And if that were the case, one side might feel they could gain a immediate tactical advantage over the other. And so this type of activity has to be watched, and it could turn into disaster. Industry news, we saw Webroot Software acquire BrightCloud. BrightCloud is probably got the largest database of URLs, and have been offering them in various forms, OEMing, et cetera, to companies that want to do URL content filtering. Webroot Software, of course, one of my alma maters, creators of spyware and trying to move into the cloud with hosted email solutions, and now they've acquired a company with this content URL database and the classifications. Webroot, even for the last 5 years, has been crawling the web and identifying malware and spyware, but they haven't been going through the process of classifying the websites. So they've got added value if they can bundle that into their services. One big piece of news that slipped under my radar, I guess I'm not looking at that channel as often as I probably should, NTT, big Japanese communications company, acquired Dimension Data for $3.2 billion. That's a huge deal. Dimension Data is one of the biggest distributors of security products, with the Checkpoint probably being at the top of their product portfolio. And then HP acquires Fortify. You might remember last year IBM acquired Ounce Labs to do code review, code analysis, and HP's acquisition of Fortify could be viewed as a competitive move against that, but it certainly enhances HP's ability to offer more code review and security consulting services through EDS, which of course HP owns, and bundle it with or enhance the capabilities of the technology they acquired years ago from Spy Dynamics, which did this external code review and scanning as well. So please tune in next week, and we are actually going to have a webcast devoted to industry news, and just tune into the Cyber Defense channel to see what that is, because it's big news.